Casey's Top 40.
From Hollywood, this is Casey Kasem.
Number 37.
The second of our three debuts is by a three-man band from Buffalo, New York called the Goo Goo Dolls. They've been making albums since 1987, and now they have their first top 40 hit. From the CD A Boy Named Goo, these are the Goo Goo Dolls with Name.
Casey's Top 40.
And that means we're up to the brand new number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40, brought to you by Johnson's Clean and Clear. This week's number one is by a very picky band, a band that writes over 200 songs to pick just 10 for an album. John Rzeznik, Robbie Takic, and George Satuska first got together in Buffalo, New York back in 1986. And in putting together the 5 albums they released since then, they've developed their own unique way of working. According to Johnny Rzeznik, when their creative juices start flowing, there's no stopping them. Each of the 3 members is constantly coming up with song ideas. And as each idea arrives, whoever thought of it will jot it down on whatever scrap of paper he has at hand. Then the 3 rockers get together and try to turn those ideas into songs. Johnny says they rarely spend more than a half hour on a song, and that means some of them are finished and some aren't. When they get ready to record an album, they've got more than 200 songs to choose from. Many wind up in the trash. Some are recorded for just a few notes. And the very best, the cream of the crop, wind up on the album. Earlier this year, the band released their 5th album, titled A Boy Named Goo. And now, a hand-picked track from that album has become the biggest hit in the land. The brand new number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40 is Name by the Goo Goo Dolls.
Number 5.
Rising a notch are the Goo Goo Dolls with a song lead singer Johnny Rzeznik says he wrote in just 5 minutes. Johnny says after attending an early screening of the Nicolas Cage Meg Ryan film City of Angels, he was so inspired the song just flowed out of him. Here's Iris by Johnny Rzeznik and the Goo Goo Dolls.
Give up forever to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now. American Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem, and that means we're up to the number one song in the USA on American Top 20. It's by a band who say they paid their dues on the road, working as the opening act for pie judging contests and prize-winning pigs. Lead singer Johnny Rzeznik says they've definitely gone through some strange times on the road to success. The band formed in Buffalo, New York back in the early 90s, and though they were able to land a few jobs in Buffalo and in nearby Toronto, mostly gigs were hard to come by. And then they made a contact with a concert promoter who thought he could do something for them. He was a promoter with a specialty. He set up shows at country fairs, state fairs, county fairs, and the like. He told the band they'd usually be playing for an enthusiastic audience, but the conditions wouldn't always be state-of-the-art. And Johnny Rzeznik says he was right. Sometimes they played under a tent. Other times they performed in a field with whatever speakers they could power. A few times they played in a show ring between appearances by prize-winning cows and prize-winning pigs. More than a few times, they were the musical break between events. The fair would announce the blue ribbon winner in the category of apple pies before them, and the best of show sheep after them. Johnny says it was strange, but it was work. And this week, those years of hard work have paid off. Johnny and his band are reaping the rewards with a song that entered the top 10 8 weeks ago, and this week is once again the biggest hit in the land. The number one song in the USA on American Top 40 for the second week in a row is Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls.
American Top 40.
Hi, this is Casey Kasem. You know, the band with the current number one song in the USA is no overnight success. The Goo Goo Dolls performed and recorded for 9 years before scoring their first hit back in 1995 with a song called Name. Today, 12 years after starting, the Goo Goo Dolls are holding down the number one spot in the pop chart for the 4th week in a row with their song Iris. How long can their celebration at number one last? Find out as we count down all the biggest hits in the USA on American Top 40 from AM/FM radio networks.
The hits hits from coast to coast.
I'm Steve Streit for Kasem, and that means we're up to the #1 song in the USA. It's by a band who says their name is like a bad tattoo. It's something they're stuck with. One of the most memorable things about this band is their very unusual name. It's a name they took from an ad in the back of a magazine, an ad for some strange-looking children's toys that could be ordered by mail. John Rzeznik, the group's lead singer, says at the time they thought it was just the coolest name going. It was so out in left field. But in the years they've had to carry this name around with them, they've begun to have second thoughts. Johnny says, quote, "It's like a bad tattoo. You think it's cool one drunken night, and then you're stuck with it forever," unquote. Well, that's the downside. The upside is a career that's currently thriving, thanks to a song that this week breaks the record for the most weeks at #1 on our survey. The #1 song in the USA on American Top 20 for the 15th amazing week is Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls.
And you can't fight the tears that ain't coming, or the moment of truth in your lies. When everything feels like the movies, yeah, you bleed just to know you're alive.
American Top 40.
And that means we're up to the top song of 1998. It's by a band that believes if at first you don't succeed, try again. They've had 9 of their songs on motion picture soundtracks, and none of them became hits. Back in 1991, this band from Buffalo, New York had 3 songs on the soundtrack of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, Freddy's Dead. In the years that followed, they had songs on the soundtracks of the hit movies Son-in-Law, Tommy Boy, Angus, Ace Ventura 2, Twister, and Batman and Robin. A very impressive assortment of films to be associated with, but none of them gave this group a soundtrack hit. And then they recorded a song for a love story starring Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan. The story of an angel who falls in love with a mortal. The hit film City of Angels. Well, after nearly 10 years of trying and 9 misses, it finally happened. This band from Buffalo not only scored with their first movie hit, they also scored the biggest hit of the year. The #1 song of 1998 on American Top 40 is Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls.
And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
Number 7.
Dropping 2 notches of the Goo Goo Dolls, lead singer Johnny Rzeznik says being successful is a dream come true, but that sometimes he has a hard time believing it. He says, quote, "The disparity between a 10-year-old boy playing air guitar, wishing I was a rock star, and the reality of the whole thing is insane," unquote. Here's Johnny Rzeznik and his band at number 7 with Slide.
Number 7.
Slipping a notch are the Goo Goo Dolls. The trio is led by Johnny Rzeznik, who says he got his start in music at the age of 5. That's when his mom, he says, turned him on to music. First accordion lessons, then a few years later, the electric guitar. Here's Johnny putting those musical lessons to work with the Goo Goo Dolls on Slide.
Could you whisper in my ear?
Counting down the hits with Kasem. Counting down the hits with Kasem.
Now, during a recent visit to the Jay Leno show, the Goo Goo Dolls performed in 60s-style bouffant wigs, tight dresses, and high-heeled shoes. Why? So they'd look like the #1 female group in history. It happened recently when the Goo Goo Dolls were getting into makeup for an appearance on The Tonight Show. While they were being powdered down, lead singer Johnny Rzeznik noticed a lot of wigs on the counter. He asked what they were there for, and the makeup lady told Johnny they were auditioning people to pretend to be the Supremes on the show. Well, Johnny says, "Hey, can we do it?" And they said yes. Johnny insisted he be Diana Ross, and he gloats, "I looked hot." He was also the only brave Goo Goo man enough to toss on some high heels to complete his diva outfit. Johnny says they actually had a pair of red high-heel shoes, size 12. Dressed like the Supremes, if you can imagine it, the band blazed through a punk rock version of the classic Supreme song, Baby Love. Then, later in the show, Johnny stepped out of his high heels and back into his own shoes to perform their latest hit. Strutting their stuff at number 18, here's the cross-dressing Goo Goo Dolls with Broadway.
The hits from coast to coast.
Well, now we're up to an American Top 40 Extra by the Goo Goo Dolls, a band whose leader says one of his biggest challenges in creating new songs is sorting through all the clutter he creates in the process. John Rzeznik, lead singer and songwriter for the Goo Goo Dolls, says that organization is not his strong suit. In fact, he's about as disorganized as he can be. He says he's always writing down ideas for songs and bits of lyrics on whatever paper is nearby, which in his case is often paper napkins. He keeps those napkins around for reference, and when he starts to work on his songs, it's his napkin notes that he turns to. Except it's not always easy to find what he's looking for. John Rzeznik says, "You should see my house. I've got big piles of paper laying around everywhere." But out of all that clutter have come some of the hottest hits of the past decade. Now, with an American Top 40 Extra, here are the Goo Goo Dolls with one of those hits, a number one smash from 1998, a song John Rzeznik wrote for the soundtrack to the film City of Angels. Here's Iris.
Counting down the hits with Casey Kasem.
Well, now we're up to the song Here Is Gone by the Goo Goo Dolls, whose leader says the best thing you can do for him is to tell him he's wrong. John Rzeznik says he's learned a lot of lessons in his years in rock, and one of the most important is that being surrounded by people who say yes all the time can be the end of you. He says, quote, "I don't like to have people who say yes to everything, who always tell me how great I am. I've been around guys who have that, and it deludes you. It makes you feel like you can't be wrong, that you're infallible." John says he really appreciates being told he's wrong. Quote, "I always tell the people around me, if I'm screwing up, let me know. This is no time to be playing up to me. We have too much to lose. I don't want to mess things up by having a false sense of who or what I am. If I did, I'd just stop trying." Unquote. Well, the good news is John hasn't stopped trying, and the result is a string of big hits, including his latest. At number 29 this week on AT40, here's John Rzeznik and the Goo Goo Dolls with Here Is Gone.
You and I got something, but it's all and then it's nothing to me.
America's Top Hits.
This week back in 1999, one of the top hits in the USA was Slide. It's by a band who say they're proud of their number ones, but they're even prouder of the fact that they built themselves from the ground up. In their years on our chart, the Goo Goo Dolls have hit the top 3 times, but John Rzeznik says that's almost insignificant compared with the pride they feel about being self-made. Quote, "We were just 3 kids in college willing to work hard to make it. There were times that we starved, times that we slept on floors, times that it seemed impossible, but we never gave up. That's really something to be proud of." Unquote. This week back in 1999, the Goo Goo Dolls had one of the top hits in the USA with one of their number ones. Here's Slide.
America's Top Hits.
This week back in 2006, one of the top hits in the USA was Better Days. It's a song written about a hurricane. John Rzeznik of the Goo Goo Dolls wrote the song as a reaction to the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina. He says, quote, "I wanted to get across the message that there's always hope, no matter how bad things seem." The song was released within weeks of Katrina, and thanks to lines like, "And you ask me what I want this year, and I try to make this kind and clear, just the chance that maybe we'll find better days." The song became a big holiday hit, and it's continued to be a hit well past the holidays, with one of the top hits in the USA this week back in 2006, the Goo Goo Dolls and Better Days.
Casey counts them down.
Well, now we're up to an American Top 20 extra by the Goo Goo Dolls, a band whose leader knew he was a real musician when he figured out how to turn musical dreams into musical reality. John Rzeznik says, quote, "I've always had music that's been in my head, but I couldn't figure out how to get it from my imagination onto tape. We used to spend days in the studio trying to record the music I heard in my head, and we'd never get it right." Well, the Goo Goo Dolls have been making music since 1986, and John says it's taken him all that time to finally feel like a real musician. Quote, "It took forever. It wasn't until our last album that I had a sense I could really make music. I'd describe what was in my head to the band, and after a few tries, we'd get it right. Being able to do that blows me away. It's what makes music exciting." Now, with an extra, here are the Goo Goo Dolls with a hit from 2006 that was pulled from John's imagination into the real world. Here's Stay With You.